Hello there, everyone. Hola a todos, and welcome to this Spanish GCSE and iGCSE video tutorial. In this particular tutorial, if this works, then we are going to look at how to answer the shorter writing task. The shorter writing task is, of course, a very important part of the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE writing exam. And the vast majority of students will have to do a shorter writing task. So I'm going to take you through the requirements in this video, give you guidance as to how to score those marks, and how to make the most of this shorter writing task. So my name, first of all, is Dhananjay Talwar. I studied French and Italian at the University of Cambridge for my MA degree, and I graduated back in 2015. I've been in the field of education since that time, mainly as a full-time tutor. I have learnt over 20 languages to different levels myself, and that includes at least 9 to fluency, which of course includes Spanish too, which I picked up outside of school before practicing a lot with friends as I enjoyed it. Learning languages in general is something I really love and enjoy doing a lot. And I also enjoy motivating my students, making sure they understand how to learn languages effectively while also having a great time and helping them to reach their target grades. And I have already helped over 500 different students to achieve or even exceed their target grade in GCSE or iGCSE exams for languages as a full-time tutor. I've taught 8 languages so far to GCSE and iGCSE level, and several of those at higher levels too. So this is a look at the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE exam boards. So as of August 2025, there are 4 exam boards for GCSE Spanish and 2 for iGCSE Spanish. You should recognize your own exam board here. Of course, every student will do just one exam board. And there are slight differences between different exam boards. Pearson Edexcel iGCSE, for example, is still the only exam board that has a combined reading and writing paper. So they do not have separate papers for reading and writing for those 2 skills. But that is the only exam board to do that. It's still useful to be aware of which exam board you are studying as early as possible and what the format and syllabus for your particular exams will be like. In this particular video, though, we are, of course, looking at part of the writing exam, the shorter writing task, and that will be relevant for students following any of these exam boards in bold here. So basically, any exam board except for CCEA, which in any case is specific to Northern Ireland. If you're doing any of these exam boards in bold on this slide, then listen out, because this should be very valuable for you. So just before we go into the shorter writing task, let's have a look at the possible parts of your Spanish GCSE and iGCSE writing paper. So, of course, it goes without saying that nobody will have to do all of these tasks because there's a long list of tasks here, and that would make a very long exam, which is unreasonable. The exact number of tasks you'll have to do depends on your exam board. It can also depend on whether you're taking foundation or higher tier. So it's definitely good to be aware of that as early as possible. The kinds of tasks that can come up, though, in your writing paper involve a form filling exercise, a listing exercise, an exercise asking you to write short sentences in Spanish, an exercise asking you to provide a brief response to a photo, a small grammar exercise, a shorter writing task, a longer writing task, and translation, which would be from English to Spanish, if indeed translation is part of your writing exam. The shorter writing task is, of course, the subject of this particular video, and that's what we're going to look at in more detail here. I do cover the longer writing task in a lot more depth in a separate video, and there is yet another video looking at translation and translation in both directions in that same video, from English to Spanish and from Spanish to English. For those 5 exercises or tasks which are listed at the top here, from form filling exercise down to grammar exercise, those ones tend to be more straightforward and formulaic, and none of those are actually covered in these particular videos for that reason. But in this particular video, we are, of course, looking at the shorter writing task. Now, for the shorter writing task, you as a student, of course, have to write an answer all in Spanish, naturally, addressing several bullet points. The exact number of bullet points can really vary, generally from about 2 to 5 for the shorter writing task, but that will vary according to your exam board, potentially whether you're doing foundation or higher tier too. The question itself will always be based on a particular topic area. So it is important to revise all of your topic areas. You will often have a choice between different questions that you could do for the shorter writing task as well. You'll only ever have to do one shorter writing task maximum in your writing paper, and one longer writing task maximum as well in your writing paper, no more than that. But you will often be given a choice of questions, and if that's the case, then I would read through all of those possible questions in full before deciding, and I decide which one to do based on the topic areas of those questions, and I'd answer certainly whichever one I feel most comfortable with answering and most confident in scoring highly in, essentially. Those are the criteria to use. As a student, you would also have a specified number of words to write for the writing task. Again, it depends a little bit from exam board to exam board. You can be given a range of possible word limits that are acceptable. You do not have to write exactly within that, but I would generally aim for 10% either way. So if you're given a very specific number of words to write, for instance, 100 words for your shorter writing task, if that's what it says in the instructions for your shorter writing task, then I'd aim to write between 10% of that number. So if you're asked to write, say, 100 words for your shorter writing task, aim to write between 90 and 110, for instance. And I wouldn't go above or beyond that. I'd give myself about 10% of leeway. If you do go above or beyond that, then you do risk being penalized. I know some teachers may say otherwise, but my rationale is always that good exam technique is all about covering your back and reducing any chances whatsoever of examiners taking marks off you. So I'd stick to 10% either way of the word limit, above or below. And what I would do is, and what I did in my 5 GCSE language exams too, is sit there and count up the words one by one. I wouldn't try and estimate the number of words because, it's worth making sure that you're not going to lose marks for this potentially frustrating reason. And here, as promised, are the word limits for the shorter writing task. You'll notice that these vary depending on the exam board and also depending on whether you're doing foundation or higher tier. And of course, for CCEA, there's no real shorter writing task, so that's why that exam board is not given here. So I would make a note of these word limits for your shorter writing task, and of course, just focus on whichever one it is that you're going to do. So if you're doing foundation tier, just look at the foundation tier for your particular exam board. If you're doing higher tier, only have a look at the higher tier one for your exam board, not the other ones. And it's good to be aware of this and to make a note of it as early as possible as well. For iGCSE exam boards, then of course there's no distinction there between foundation or higher tier. Okay, here are some top tips for the shorter writing task. So the first thing is to always answer each bullet point directly. There will always be a certain number of bullet points, and you have to include every single one of those in your answer. So no matter whether there are 2 bullet points, 3, 4, 5 bullet points, you have to include every single one of those always in your answer in the shorter writing task. And it's the same for the longer writing task in that respect as well. I would try and signal to the examiners as clearly as possible that you have included every single bullet point in your answer. For example, start a new paragraph every time you start to talk about a new bullet point or you move on to the next bullet point. Try and make it as clear as possible that you've also addressed each bullet point roughly equally. So if, for example, you're asked to write roughly 100 words, and you have 5 bullet points that you must include in your answer, I would certainly not write about 40 words for the first bullet point and then 10 for the next one. You definitely risk being penalized if you do that. You're very likely to get some marks taken off. You should address each bullet point roughly equally too. So if you have to write about 100 words on 5 different bullet points, then aim to write roughly 20 words per bullet point. And of course, you're not going to end up writing exactly 20 for every single bullet point because that's ridiculously precise. But yeah, so a little bit of leeway is okay, but do not vary. Do not vary it too much. Do not write considerably more for one bullet point than you do for another. Use topic-specific vocabulary as well. That can be important. You do not have to vary your vocabulary as much, or grammar for that matter, as much in the shorter writing task as you do for the longer writing task. But particularly if you're writing on a topic area which has plenty of topic-specific vocab, this tends to vary. But certain topic areas such as the environment, even though it's arguably the hardest for most students, actually they have has a lot of topic-specific vocabulary. So if you do know some of those words, it can definitely be beneficial to throw those in, even in the shorter writing task too. Use some variety of tenses as well. So again, you don't have to show off as much in your shorter writing task as you do in your longer writing task. Certainly, you can score close to the top bracket of marks of the shorter writing task without much variation, without too much variation in your language or grammar. But conversely, I certainly wouldn't stick with just the present tense, for instance. If you do just write in the present tense, you are likely to lose marks. Definitely, I would throw in some past tenses, say preterite or imperfect, some future or conditional tenses as well, even in the shorter writing task. And you can use the bullet points to guide you too, because there's likely to be at least one bullet point that sort of prompts you to write in the past and to use past tenses. For example, if they ask what you did last week or what you have done this year. And there's likely to be at least one bullet point more geared towards using the future or conditional tenses. For example, if they ask what you're doing later this year, or what you will do after the exams, for instance. So pay attention to that as well. Stick roughly to the word limit. As mentioned, about 10% is a good percentage of leeway above or below that word limit. And there are marks in the mark scheme for sticking roughly to the word limit, usually, and for including each and every bullet point in your answer too. And remember that for the shorter writing task, at least, you do not have to show off or vary your language too much. So this is not actually the place to use as many complex phrases or grammar structures as possible. Certainly, I would try and vary your grammar somewhat and the language. And for Spanish in particular, there's such a wide variety of verb tenses out there that you're certainly able to do that. But you don't have to go crazy and include as many different grammatical forms as you can. That's more for the longer writing task, where variety is more significant. For the shorter writing task, it's really precision, accuracy, and keeping your Spanish correct, and of course, addressing every single bullet point equally. Those are the things to prioritize. Okay, a few more tips when it comes to the shorter writing task. Make sure you check through all of your writing very thoroughly afterwards. That's really important. Even the top candidates are likely to have made some mistakes because you're writing in Spanish, and to be able to spot those mistakes as they check and then change them, and so directly improve their marks. So it can make a real difference. Make sure that you don't forget to check through everything. And when you're writing in Spanish, when you've written in Spanish, of course, you need to check for things like spelling, punctuation, and grammar, or SPAG, as it's collectively known as well. But you do need to check the content too. So also make sure to check that you've answered everything that the question is asking you to do. You haven't made any silly mistakes or left anything out. You haven't left out any bullet points, for example, which can cause you to lose marks. And that you fulfilled the question's requirements. Memorizing key phrases is the next tip. That's something I talk about a lot, and I'm not going to stop doing so because I think it's really useful for all students, no matter what your target grade is. And whether you're doing foundation tier, higher tier, which exam board you're studying, key phrases can work and be very useful for you. Key phrases generally means phrases that include tougher grammatical forms, say subjunctive verbs in the subjunctive, see or if clauses, different ways of expressing your opinion, and so on. And you can memorize a bunch of these, say 5 to 10, however many you feel able to memorize. They can be memorized even just a day or two before your exams, particularly your speaking and writing. And then you can throw in these phrases during your speaking or your writing papers, and they can directly boost your marks because particularly the more advanced phrases tend to directly be associated with top grades. So every student can really benefit from these. And they can benefit without too much extra effort as well. It shouldn't take too long, hopefully, to memorize these kinds of phrases. I do have lists of such phrases available as well, so you can get in contact if you want to know about those. Key phrases and things like subjunctive forms are also, key phrases that contain, say, subjunctive forms are also a very useful way of getting around particularly tricky aspects of Spanish grammar. There are some harder parts of Spanish grammar, especially verbal grammar. And instead of struggling with the subjunctive or parts of grammar that you find difficult, you could just memorize phrases that contain those verb forms, say, or those parts of grammar. That is a way to get around that as well. Indicate clearly which question you answered. That is really important. You do not want to lose marks, not because your Spanish was bad in any way, or because you didn't answer every bullet point or went above or below the word limit or anything, but simply because you didn't show the examiner clearly which question it was that you were answering. So make sure to check for this as well. Make sure that you do put a cross next to the question that you have to answer, or that you indicate, however you're supposed to indicate it on the question paper, which question you've answered. Otherwise, it would be a very frustrating way to lose potentially quite a few marks. And lastly, practice using past paper materials in exam conditions. Regardless of which exam you're studying for, this tends to be the best way to practice. You can find past paper materials often on the website of your exam board. That's a great place to start. You can get in touch with me if you want further help on finding past paper materials, but try and use past papers that are as close as possible to the real thing for you, and try and do them in exam conditions. Try and mimic the conditions of the real exam. So without going over the time, without being able to look up words and so on. Okay, now I'm going to give you one example. This comes from a 2022 paper for AQA, and you can see the instructions written out here. It's obviously very important to read through those instructions fully. Make sure you understand exactly what you have to do and how many marks are available as well. You can see that this question's worth 16 marks. Typically, the longer writing task will be worth more and often even double the number of marks as for the shorter writing task. So let me just translate these instructions quickly. It says you have a new Spanish friend, Andrea. She has sent you some questions to get to know you better. Write her an email, mention, and these are, of course, the 4 bullet points, all of which must be included in your answer. So mention 1, what you did with your family during a fun or an enjoyable day in the past. 2, your opinion about marriage. 3, what you do with your computer. 4, if you would like to visit a festival in Spain in the future. And these instructions at the bottom are also still important. Write roughly 90 words in Spanish. Answer all aspects of the question. So it's important to pay attention to and take in all of those instructions. And of course, now I will show you my model answer, or how I would answer sort of question. So here is the model answer. You can see the question is written out again at the top, and my model or ideal answer is given just below in red. So I'm going to give you a bit of time to read over all of this, but I'll also indicate some of the things which I've been careful to do in my answer. So you can see that I've actually kept the language relatively simple. I haven't expanded on my answer that much because there's a limited number of words to play with. It says write roughly 90 words, so I've been very wary of that word count. I haven't used too many different grammar forms either. In terms of verb tenses, I have used some variety. So I definitely haven't stuck just with the present tense. I've been careful to use some variation. In the first bullet point, I've used the preterite tense. Fuimos, for instance, is the preterite from the verb ir, in this case, to go. Pasé is the preterite of the verb pasar, to spend time. I have used the present subjunctive here. Ser is the present subjunctive from ser. And another present subjunctive here, vayamos, is the present subjunctive form from the verb ir. And a conditional, me gustaría, I would like. However, I haven't hugely varied my grammar, not as much as I would do, say, for most likely for a longer writing task. I've really prioritized and focused on accuracy instead, and also made sure to include all of the details that I have to include as per the bullet points, as per what's indicated in the bullet points. I have also showed the examiners very clearly that I've answered each bullet point by starting a new paragraph when starting to address a new bullet point. So that's something I really recommend as well. Apart from that, I haven't hugely varied my vocabulary. Another thing worth mentioning, though, is this particular question asks to write an email. And if you do have to write an email or a letter, if that's what it says in the question, then I would try and set it out a little bit like an email or a letter. You definitely don't have to put addresses and things like that. All you really have to do for that, all that I would do, is include a greeting at the beginning, and then the name of the person who you're writing to, and at the end have some form of signing off, and then your own name. Make sure to include your own name at the bottom. Don't write my name. That would look pretty bad. And that's all that I would do if it is an email or a letter. You shouldn't be marked down if you don't. But again, just to protect yourself, I would set it out like that in any case. You can see that I have varied my tenses a little bit, but essentially it's accuracy that I've been focusing on while writing this answer. Okay, now there's just a little bit of time for a quick quiz to test your understanding of the shorter writing task. So, question number 1. What should you look for while checking your work? So I definitely did mention that it is important to check through your work, but do you remember what to look out for while you're doing so? Let me give you a few seconds, and then we'll show you the answer. Okay, here's the answer. So when you're writing in Spanish, you always have to check, of course, that you fulfilled the requirements of the question, but also you need to check for spelling, punctuation, and grammar whenever you're writing in a foreign language. Naturally, those are the most common things that can go wrong. Okay, question number 2 then, which is true or false. You do not have to address every single bullet point that's given for the shorter writing task. Is that true or is it false? Again, something I did talk about. So I'm going to give you a bit of time to think over this. This one is false. So you definitely do have to answer every single bullet point when you are answering your shorter writing task. And this is very important. There are marks in the mark scheme for any exam board, really, specifically for doing this. So definitely something to practice and get used to as well. Question 3 is also true or false. Topic-specific vocabulary is insignificant for your shorter writing task. Is that true or is it false? Try and cast your minds back. Okay, I'm going to show you this answer too. This one is also false. Each shorter writing task is related to a particular topic area, so you can try and use some topic-specific vocabulary related to that particular topic area, and that can be useful to boost your marks as well. I would say varying grammar for these writing tasks is perhaps more important than varying vocabulary, but there's no harm in varying your vocabulary as well. and topic-specific vocabulary can contribute to higher marks too. And number 4, finally, how much do you need to vary your language overall for the shorter writing task? Let me give you some seconds to reflect on this. Okay, and here comes the answer. So you don't need to hugely vary your language for your shorter writing task, certainly not as much as for the longer writing task. Using some more advanced phrases or certainly some kind of range of tenses is still beneficial for sure, but accuracy remains the most important. So whatever it is that you use, whatever grammatical structures, you have to be confident use those correctly. So if you have questions about any of that at all, or if you'd like to know more about more personalized help, which I do offer too, you can get in touch by email, through Facebook or Instagram. And I post on Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn every day, sharing my love of languages with people, trying to encourage people to learn languages, making sure they know the benefits of doing so, why it can be so beneficial, and how to learn them in fun ways as well. But I do post plenty about GCSE and iGCSE language exams too, including how to revise, how to make sure you're in the correct mindset, how to learn grammar and vocabulary, and more. I have many resources, including free ones, available for all languages, really, for GCSE, including Spanish. So you can contact me to find out more about that. I do one-to-one classes, group classes, courses, and more. So if you'd like to know more about any of this, just get in touch.